Hi, Ken from MakeTech here. In this video we're going to have a look at GPT-4 compared to GPT3.5 in ChatGPT. I've had a few people say that they're not that impressed with it, or maybe they're just not finding the value in it the way I am. And also, I'm the only person I know that uses GPT-4. Let's have a play and I'll show you some examples of why I think GPT-4 is significantly better than GPT 3.5, and for the people that have dismissed ChatGPT as being a BS machine, one person called it. Yeah, I mean, I think they should know about GPT-4. You know, I think it's worth giving it a try, especially with this week. There's going to be the plugins feature coming out. GPT-4 really is going to be on another level. It's not the same. It's a different kind of model. It's been trained differently. It's different technology, really, to be honest. It's just that the way it's presented in ChatGPT looks the same. So if you're asking a simple question, you won't really know the difference. If you start pushing the limits, then you'll get some different answers. So for this one, for example, this is where I found, actually, yeah, this is pretty significant. So this is where I found ChatGPT and GPT-4 really useful, is for feeds and speeds recipes for CNC machining. When I first tried this, actually, it wasn't really giving me the best answers. Maybe it has improved because this does seem to be a bit better, but this is 3.5's answer, and I'll show you the answer I got from GPT-4 in a second. So something to note with prompts is how to do a good prompt for an AI model. They are all different. It depends what mode it's in, depends what filters you've got running, etc. But for this one, yeah, for ChatGPT, so I'll just read out what I've got here. Recommend feeds and speeds for a CAM, that's computer-aided machining, operation. Specs, industrial CNC router, single flute end mill, 10mm diameter, 40,000 RPM spindle, material aluminium, operation type 3D, adaptive in Fusion 360. Specify a gentle recipe and an aggressive recipe. That's a pretty good prompt because I'm giving it a bunch of information in one hit, which it can process, no worries. You can give it a heap of information in one prompt, which is what you should do, and then give it the question and be very blunt and clear. Basically, is how you get the answer that you want, unless you want it to be creative and give you a bit of a curveball. Is that how you say? Give you a random thing that you weren't expecting. And then you can word it differently, like how would you machine this or something, you might say. Whereas I've given a really direct sort of question there. Anyway, there's the response it gave, which I won't read, but you can just have a quick look at that if you want to pause it there. You can see, and that's reasonably okay. It's not necessarily wrong, but if I run my machine at 18,000 RPM, the spindle will get hot because it's designed for a 40,000 RPM, and yeah, it's just the way that works. 30 to 35 is better. And if I've got a 40,000 RPM spindle, why wouldn't I just run it at 40,000? I'm just making the machine take longer to do the job if I don't run it at 40,000. It's okay, but it's not amazing. It's, it's pretty good. Like if you went on a forum and found that answer, you'd be happy, right? Let's scroll down here. I've got lots of chats here we can look at in a sec. Okay. All right. This is I was really impressed with this. It's hard to put into words, I guess, but to have this AI here at my fingertips, answering these questions and getting them right is incredibly valuable. So the same prompt again, and this time the answer is a bit better. I've got a 40,000 RPM spindle, so I can't really run it. I don't like running it lower than 20 because it does it runs inefficiently and gets hot. So yeah, 24,000. That's good. It's like you want to be gentle, and like gives you more time to hit the E stop if you've programmed the part wrong and it's about to crash. It's going to do the feeds and speeds slower because the RPM is slower. And yeah, this is all quite good. This is nice. It's similar to the previous one with 3.5, but it's just the spindle RPM is good. This all works out nicely. Yeah, and then the aggressive recipe. This is pretty good because that's when you can really run into trouble when you're trying to push the machine harder. That's when you break bits, things get hot, and it can go bad quickly. But yeah, this seems pretty good. I haven't actually used this, but depending on the exact toolpath as well. I mean, it does know that it's a Fusion 360 3D adaptive. So if that was programmed correctly, then this recipe should work pretty well, especially yeah, it talks about coolant there, you know, so yeah, if you've got flood coolant, then you can go hard. But anyway, that's getting into machining stuff, which isn't necessarily the point of this video, but the point being is whatever esoteric field of engineering, manufacturing, design, whatever industry you're in, if you've got a resource, whether it's you know, some book that you have in the office there that you can't find anywhere else, I think you'd be surprised if you have a look on try GPT-4, just test it out. You might find that it can give you answers that you normally would use from yeah, some database or some old engineering book or something. So that was the main one that I actually wanted to cover, but yeah, I've got a few other great ones here, and some tips about prompting as well. So while we're here, we'll go straight to, yeah, a bit of AI news mixed in here as well. So the Palm 2 model that's running in the back end of the new Google chat that's similar to ChatGPT but from Google, called Bard. There was a report that Google released called Palm 2 Technical Report, and it is absolutely massive. It's about 50 pages. I did have a skim through it just with my human brain, human eyes, had a look, found a bit of information in there that compared it to GPT-4, which was something I had as a benchmark to compare it to. And their claims, to be honest, I don't think they hold up. I don't think it's as good as they're claiming it is. Maybe it's got potential, but in the way they've implemented it in Bard is not, maybe it's not demonstrating what they're saying that Palm 2 can do. But anyway, point of this one is, if you need to feed in a whole bunch of information, there's only so much you can paste in with one prompt, as in each prompt can only be so long, so you can't just paste in a 50-page book, but you can paste in quite large prompts. So at the start here, I'm just doing one page at a time because I was doing it on my phone. I was chewing through my prompts pretty quick, so then I realized I should be doing this on the computer where I can select more at a time, and you can see that's one prompt there. It's quite long, so that's, yeah, one. Yeah, it's quite a lot, right? So the way to do that without making it try and respond to each prompt, you need it to know that you're just pasting in information and just tell it to not respond. You can tell at the start, just respond, quote, received, quote, after each prompt I send. I'll tell you when I've finished feeding you the copied text. Received. Perfect. Okay, so then, yeah, I'm just pasting it in, paste the title, you know, I copied the title and just go, received. And then what actually happened is it did forget that it was just supposed to say received and not respond. So I had to add, yeah, so this is the way to do it, is with every time you paste something in, just put this line at the end, and then if you want to help it as well, you can use curly brackets around the bit that you've pasted in just to help punctuate the part that you're pasting. It helps it realize what's going on. And yeah, I've seen people you can do in the prompt, I'll put the pasted bit in curly brackets, like curly bracket like this, curly bracket, and then it understands, gives it the syntax that you're going to use to communicate with it. So then, yeah, received again, good. And pasting, big document, this one. And you can imagine trying to read 50 pages. I mean, you know, you can get through it, but really, do we need to read the whole thing? No, we don't. So yeah, down the end of this last prompt where I've pasted in, yeah, I did end up using that curly bracket to help it. That is the last section of pasting. Please resume responding naturally. Summarize this document in dot points. Try to keep them one sentence. And boom, it does it perfect. So we've got 8 dot points here. I haven't really fact checked whether these are correct, but I believe, yeah, from my experience, the reason I'm doing this video is because I believe GPT-4 is that good, and it does make some mistakes. It's very rare, but sometimes it does do some, like if you hit the limit of its ability with coding, if it's got nothing to reference, like I've done some software stuff it's obviously gone, I haven't got anything to base, it's got no knowledge to base its answer on, that just kind of made something up that it didn't work. And it was obvious, I could see it from its response straight away that it was just making something up. Point being, sometimes it's wrong, sometimes it makes things up, but yeah, generally it's quite good. Yeah, so then I've just gone, okay, let's test it out. What does it know about this dot point here? Data mixture is crucial for model success, with even minor translation pairs enabling the model to compete with production translation services. So I've got the light shining in my eyes, it's a bit hard to read. So I said, tell me more about data mixture and give an example, and then boom, does it. So here we go. For instance, in the case of Palm 2, even though translation pairs were a small part of the data mixture, their inclusion significantly enhanced the model's performance. This allowed Palm 2 to compete with production translation services. So that's interesting. So they can potentially use this as a translator. So yeah, I'd like to see more about Palm 2. They'll be rolling out more stuff with it in time. But yeah, at the moment that Bard chat is yeah, when I got it to do that feeds and speeds, oh man, that was a mess. That did not work. It took me many prompts to coax out of it without giving it the answer, to make it give me the answer, to make it do it right, because it was mixing up inches and millimeters, and I had to correct it. And yeah, we got there, but yeah, nowhere near as good as GPT-4. Nowhere near. Alright, I've got another example here. This one's pretty cool. I was just messing around today. This is what I really love GPT-4 for this kind of workflow where I'll just think of an idea, which, yeah, that's my jam. Thinking of ideas. I'll do a quick look at, okay, let's see, want to do an electric skateboard. I was just thinking about, actually, yeah, I went on a bit of a tangent, but where I ended up was electric skateboard. And I remembered seeing these motors on Stepper Online, and I've used Stepper Online for some other robotics, but yeah, so that I knew that these existed, so I was like, alright, let's have a look at that, get the specs here, go back to ChatGPT, and start the conversation going. And I took a bit of a weird approach with this one, because I was thinking, how fast do people run? Let's have a chat about that, and gave it some information. So again, with the prompts, not using up heaps of prompts, I can give it a bit of information and ask it a question, so that when I want to come back to that information later, it already knows what I'm talking about. It's already been put into this chat thread. So yeah, here we go down to the bit of engineering stuff here. 4 motor wheel assemblies, they're 220 watts each, and a bit of information about going up a hill. There's some year 12 maths or even high school maths, and it works that out pretty basic. There's no missing information that has to sort of work out. So, and I just ask it, great, what about a 22.5 degree incline? Just swaps around the equation and works that out. Yeah, then I'm asking it about peak power output at half of its max speed, and kind of agrees with me about that. That's okay to think of it like that. But then it does something weird, which is worth noting here. And you can think of this as being good or bad, and I probably could have specified for it to be factual only and only go off the specs and numbers that I provide, and it might have just stuck to what I've prompted it to do a bit more strictly. But it has gone, hey, you can run motors at peak output of double what they're rated for, so let's call them 440 watts. And that's a kind of cool thing, that it's just, it's kind of skipped ahead, it's like done an extra step. It's kind of like the keen apprentice has just gone, hey, let's just do all of this. That's not going to work, because it could be a sustained hill, which I go on to correct it. So anyway, it's worked that out, which is good. But yes, I understand your peak versus rated power assumption, but it does not apply in this case, because the vehicle will be traveling uphill for a sustained unknown time period. Therefore, we can't assume the short-term peak output is usable data point. Please calculate it at the rated power output. I probably could have kept that a bit shorter than that, but that's another point, which is kind of weird, that I've found I get more out of ChatGPT by talking to it a bit more like a human, which is, probably, I think it's a bit of both, in that I think ChatGPT does perform a bit better if you are a bit more conversational with it, rather than just having really short, blunt, maybe you could consider it like rude sort of sounding prompts. But yeah, it's also tricking myself into acting like it's a person, and then maybe for that reason I'm valuing it more, because I'm adding some feeling to the conversation, which isn't necessarily valid, or it is what it is. If I value it more because of the way I'm using it, and then I guess it's more valuable. I don't know. That's a whole nother tangent. Underestimating GPT-4 is the thing that I'm kind of addressing here. Is I think people have underestimated it sometimes because they're not pushing it hard enough. And part of pushing it hard enough is start treating it like the computer from Star Trek. I don't know. Even that's what I was said when ChatGPT came out, but now with GPT-4, I think it's more like I think it's like someone that's done every degree. And had the pill from Limitless. That's what I feel like it is. And, I mean, that's a sliding scale of how good that could be, and, GPT's on there. So we'll see when GPT-5 comes out, then what that's going to be like. I don't know. But anyway, a bit of a tangent there, but it says, yeah, you're right, and then works it out. Fairly simple maths there, but it was just nice that it just works. It just does it. And I haven't checked these answers, but I'm fairly sure that they're right, to be honest. So could be embarrassing myself here. I haven't even fact check that, but I've got to the point with GPT-4 where generally with simple stuff like this, it just is correct. Yeah, then I get to do it as a horizontal vertical ratio, and it works that out nicely. Yeah, we'll have a look at Excel, how it can be used for Excel. I just thought I'd do an experiment because I knew roughly what he was doing, my friend was doing with this Excel stuff, so I tried to get it to create some code for a cell to give him the functionality that he wanted. And then, when I shared that with my friend that was doing that, and he gave me some bit more feedback, and I had a bit more of an idea about what they wanted, so then I fed that back into GPT-4, and we got this much more complicated formula back. It's a pretty decent bit of code. I guess you could just call it code is what I'd call it, but yeah, they call it a formula. But so yeah, it's given 2 of those to put into the spreadsheets to sort of make this, Excel workbook, make the sheets work like a little database. Yes, that gives you an example of how complicated GPT-4 can get with Excel. I've got another example here. We'll just quickly look at this. Alright, here's another chat example with GPT-4, and there's a double layer to this one as well, with how GPT-4 can be used for considering sort of product development, trying to see future technology coming, and basically looking at how GPT-4 and other technology in the current state of the art AI can be used to do this task that we're talking about. So consider creating a new operating system that is completely written new from scratch, based on all the new computer science knowledge we have, open source and proprietary technology, using AI to write well-structured, clean, efficient code with computational shortcuts and full understanding of the end product hierarchy, whilst integrating the multiple layers of the OS. How much of an improvement could be achieved in performance compared to the latest Windows, macOS, Android and Linux/Ubuntu? So it's a bit of a tough question. Probably someone that's someone that works on the code, like a system architect or a high-level developer at Microsoft or one of these other places, they'd probably know how much of an improvement there can be made. But my understanding is that in probably all of those, well, now that we've got AI, we can look for shortcuts everywhere, right? So there's improvements to be made, but you'd probably have to rewrite huge chunks, and everything's interdependent, and so point being, if we rewrote an operating system, even if it was just the next Windows, say Windows 12 is just completely rewritten utilizing AI, that's still backwards compatible with everything down to say XP or whatever, and all the little efficiencies and things, because the AI can see the full depth and width of the whole operating system. It can see all the code and all the interdependencies and make efficiencies wherever possible. So you've got less hard drive space being used, less RAM being used, potentially it's faster, it can still be backwards compatible. And then what I'm proposing in this is that it's cross-platform compatible. So you make a new operating system that has, well, I've got that further down here, but yeah, so it gives an answer which I'll just sort of roll through if anyone wants to pause this and read it. But yeah, so then I've said, what about if we put virtual machine instances baked into the kernel that can be switched on and off as required? That's maybe a bit advanced if people don't know about that stuff, but essentially you just have like this super smart operating system that can just run apps from any operating system, any old as in now time to say the last 10 years or whatever. Yeah, it can run any app that existed before. And it gives a pretty good answer about that. So it's like if you want to have smart discussions with people about stuff like this, if it's something you're thinking about, maybe you're an entrepreneur looking for new ideas, or you're just curious about what the future might hold or what things are possible that can be made. I find GPT-4 really great for that, because it's pretty strong-minded sometimes if you try and push an agenda that it thinks isn't going to work. Like, it wasn't politically incorrect or something. It was just this idea that I had. It was an engineering thing, like product design. Can I summarize it? So basically, it was saying that it's too expensive to reverse engineer and modify an existing bit of hardware compared to designing a new one from scratch. Which is interesting, actually. I didn't mean to line up this last example and what I'm just talking about now, because that's the same sort of thing, right? It's easy. Maybe it's easier to create a new operating system from scratch than it is to rewrite an old one. I don't know. That's a weird comparison. Hardware and software, I guess it's not the same thing, but it's an interesting thing to think about. Yeah, the expert level of knowledge that you get for answering your random questions about whatever STEM subjects, or any subjects really. I was asking about dog food the other day. Yeah, it's quite amazing how good the answers are, and just the intelligent knowledge base that it has. And now it seems to be faster and smarter than it was. It's quite amazing. So not only that, for this chat, how good that little chat was as an example, but potentially we will see new things like an open source operating system that's backwards compatible with every other operating system and faster and more efficient. I mean, that's totally not impossible. It's totally not impossible. We'll see what happens, like, it's just a matter of someone deciding to do it. Like, for example, another Sam Altman comes along and says, cool, let's do something that's a long-term goal. It's it's right out there. It's weird. People say it's impossible, whatever. Let's go and prove them wrong, like he's doing, making ChatGPT. Alright, I was going to make that the last one, but I will just add one more here, which is kind of funny. And for the sake of privacy, I won't share the input that I've put in for this one. But yeah, I've got a friend called Derek. I hope he doesn't mind me doing this, because I'm not really showing anything that he's written. But he's just a good old friend. We've had a lot of informal chats that I could use as a method to train ChatGPT, GPT-4, how to talk to me informally, like me and my friends talk to each other. So what I've done here is fed it a few messages from our chats between me and Derek, and then I've said to it, okay, now summarize the news, and given it some news articles, and some pretty big, like, just copied the whole news article from the web. It's summarized these news articles here, which I won't read, but it's kind of funny, I mean, it's cool. I don't even know, I wouldn't know how to even really describe it. I mean, it gives it a lot of personality. Just a quick little 2-sentence message summarizing a whole news article. And then then I go into a bit more, asking it about NATO and Russia, and it's pretty funny. Maybe I shouldn't post this. I don't want. I'm not sure what's going to happen, if the algorithm's going to freak out about that. But we'll give it a go. And I really didn't want this video to go so long, but it's just too much to go through. It had to be that long, I guess. I've already tried doing this video about 5 times, and there's just too much. So I've tried to get through some good examples that I've got here in a timely manner. But I'll leave it there. If you found that useful or entertaining, please consider subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next video. And if you use GPT-4, please let me know in the comments. Cheers, bye.